चार बांस 24 गज अंगुल अष्ट प्रमाण ता ऊपर सुल्तान है मत चूके चौहान. Here are the lines from the poem Prithviraj Raso, described by the poet Chand Pardhai, a close friend of Prithviraj Chauhan, who was blinded by Sultan Muhammad Ghori. According to Rajasthani epics, Chauhan, recognizing the Sultan's seat, identified his voice and pierced the Sultan's neck with an arrow using the Shabdavedi technique. In the Prithviraj Raso, which is a mixture of history and folklore, it is recorded that Ashwathama taught the Rajput hero, Prithviraj, the art of the Shabdavedi technique. During our travels in Rajasthan, we had heard about a mysterious temple where Ashwathama worshipped Mahadev at night. In the recently released movie Kalki, Ashwathama is shown worshipping a Shivalinga inside a mysterious temple. Although it was set for the movie, the wanderlust that had been instilled long ago got supercharged with the arrival of this movie. Out of that intense feeling, we both headed towards that temple located deep in the forest in Madhya Pradesh. Our destination was a village called Burhanpur in MP. According to the Puranas, Brihu Maharshi, one of the Dasha Prajapatis, used to practice penance in Brignapura, later known as Burhanpur. He composed the magnificent Brihu Samhita in this city situated on the banks of Tapti River. This ancient city has another name, Brahmapuri. We reached Burhanpur railway station and left for Asirgarh the next day. Asirgarh fort is situated in the middle of the forest, 25 kilometers away from the city. In the 14th century, Asirgarh fort was built by a local ruler named Asa Ahir. This impregnable fort was known as the key to the Deccan due to its strategic location. Security personnel had access to the fort through a government-built dirt road, and there is another rugged route through the forest that has been in use for centuries. After obtaining passes, we opted for the forest path. It is possible to reach the entrance gate of the fort only after walking through the forest for about 5 kilometers from the valley. After collecting the necessary food items, we both started our trek. Along the way, monkeys came and looked every now and then. The forest has its own background music. The sounds of crickets, grasshoppers, and many other unknown creatures can simultaneously evoke fear and curiosity in us. Remembering that Madhya Pradesh, the most forested state in India, is a paradise for all snakes whose bites can decide a person's life, such as the Central Asian cobra, the silver viper, the most venomous species of cobra in the world. We walked very carefully with every step. Historical records say that Emperor Akbar captured the fort during his reign and stayed there for some time. After about 2 hours into the climb, the first gate of the fort came into view. We entered slowly through the granite arches. As we moved forward past the chowkis where the guards used to be, we heard the sounds of some unfamiliar creatures not far away. Built under the rule of Asa Ahir, a Hindu king, the fort stood as a beacon of strength and resilience until the year 1399. In 1399, Nasir Khan from the Faruqi dynasty sought refuge for his family within the fort's walls. Under the guise of seeking shelter, Nasir Khan betrayed Asa Ahir, leading to the king's demise and seizing control of the fort. By 1536, Adil Shah, also known as Raja Ali Khan, ruled over Burhanpur. When Emperor Humayun arrived after his conquest of Gujarat, despite initial resistance, Adil Shah ultimately accepted Humayun's supremacy. After Adil Shah, his son Bahadur Khan refused to acknowledge Akbar's rule, declaring full autonomy over the fort. But in 1600, Akbar's powerful army defeated Bahadur Khan, bringing Asirgarh fort under Mughal control. The fort saw numerous attempts of conquest by the Nizam and Marathas until 1819, when the British finally took control. From 1818 to 1872, the British used Asirgarh fort as a state prison, where many freedom fighters were incarcerated and sentenced. When we walked for about half an hour, we saw a big tree that has fallen on the way, crushing all our hopes. Walking all the way back was unthinkable. So we passed through the tall plants and reached the second gate of the fort. Yonder, the fort of Asirgarh, where the immortal Acharya Putra flourished, still stood tall in challenge to us. The strong wind blowing from the mountains is an experience that can hold any traveler for a while. After resting, we continued our journey and soon reached the main gate of the fort. We slowly made our way inside, taking in the wonders of the Asirgarh fort, which was built in a blend of Persian, Turkish, and Indian styles. The fort is built at a height of about 260 meters and is made of granite stones, mixed together with Surki mortar and lead, a mixture of local ingredients. The primary part of the fort is named Malaygad, and the middle part is named Kamargad. Passing a plaque with basic information about the fort, we walked along the dirt road towards the final stretch, to the top of Asirgarh fort. We continued our journey past a water source named Badham Kund, as it was once surrounded by almond trees and always smelled of almond fruit. Even located as high as 700 meters above sea level, one can see two more water-rich ponds on top of this mountain. On the way, another partially ruined brick building from the British rule told the stories of the renovations that took place in the fort. After walking a little further, we reached our destination, the ancient temple of Gupteshwar Mahadev. It is written in the Tapi Purana, which describes the greatness of the Tapti river, on how the temple got its name as Gupteshwar Mahadev. It says this was a temple where Ashwathama, one of the 7 Chiranjeevis, who still visits the temple at Brahma Muhurtam through a secret tunnel to reach the temple every day. We were able to see the temple pool, which is perennial even in the severest drought, where Ashwathama is believed to be purifying his body before the puja. Built in the Maratha style, the temple is only a few centuries old, but Shiva deity is much older. You can see a plaque with the history of the temple in front of it. There are many people in this village who lost their mental balance, having seen a Jadadhari wandering around with an unhealed wound on his forehead. The security personnel who locks the fort in the evening gets to see the Shivlingam worshipped with new flowers when they return in the morning. The temple is built at a depth of about 2 men height from the fort's ground level, We carefully descended the steps and slowly entered the temple. After the ringing the bell, we saw the Nandhikasha guarding Mahadev in the Garbhagriha. We wanted to take flowers from the Shivlingam, which was decorated with many flowers, but an irrational fear kept us from doing so. After passing by the recently installed Ganesha and the idols of Parvati and Anjaneya, we again went to the temple pond. The security guard of the temple explained a story a few months back of a man who spent the night in the fort by tricking the security personnel. The next day, he was found in a semi-conscious state and died even after all the hospital care. Before his death, the only sentence he uttered was, "I met Ashwathama." Just around the temple, we reached the huge mandapam at the southeast corner of the fort. In ancient times, huge cannons were placed in this mandapam to stop the attack from the valley at the initial stage itself. Near the mandapam is the fasikhana, which was used by the British to hang criminals. After entangling them in huge joists placed above the moat, they were pushed down. After the execution of the sentence, the hanging bodies were not released to the relatives. They used to cut the rope and drop them down. The dead bodies that goes down were usually eaten by wild animals that came through the tunnel under the moat. As we retraced our steps from the fort, the afternoon breeze started flowing, guiding us back to the village. The journey was a reminder of the thin veil between history and legend. As we looked back at the horizon of the fort against the blue sky, we couldn't shake off the feeling that the ancients, Gupteshwar Mahadev and Ashwathama, were still watching over us, hidden in the shadows of time.